It is Sunday evening, and of course, that means it's time for another The Auburn Experience podcast recording here live on YouTube and Facebook. We are about to get this done in a little bit of different of a fashion, not episode 92, but a very special episode for you all. Let's get into it. Lots to talk about because it's the first week of Auburn football. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it, you can qualify it through a variety of methods, times, people, places, things, experiences. But at its heart and at its core, it is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and of course, the Auburn family. Since it's about family, let's get a few of those family members in here. When by a few, I mean me and you. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Loomis. Back in chair number one. In chair number two tonight, nobody. It is vacant tonight. No Austin. Austin is on vacation. He is getting some R&R before he gets ramped up with his day job. So we miss him this week. He's missing out on a very fun episode because we're talking about the first week of college football, folks. And also, we weren't able to get anybody of our regular cast of characters we get on here or any special guests for you guys because apparently everybody's on vacation except Kyle. I don't know what that tells you. But hey, here we are. We're doing the show. So what we do in these instances where it's just me, so you're not completely bored, it will be a little bit of an abbreviated version of the podcast this week. We are not going to do Auburn Potpourri, the Auburn news segment, even though there are plenty of things we could discuss there. We are going to tackle two major topics in this show so that you guys have some content for the week. And then at the end, especially for the live portion of the show, we're going to be taking our Q&As as we normally do. We might even include a few of those on the recording if you're listening to this now. But with that being said, let's jump right into it as we typically would. Anyway, the first thing this evening that I want to talk to you about is, of course, what I've been referencing, and that is game week and the first game week of 2024. Game weekend, we should say, to be more clear. Auburn versus Alabama A&M. It went about as well as it could have, and as you might expected it to go, and then some. Was just talking with our special intern of sorts in the background there watching about the score. When he was checking in on the game, he said it was a certain score, and I gave him the updated score, and he just went, wow. Yeah, it was pretty bad for Alabama A&M. A lot of people, I don't think people were surprised by that. But maybe with the ferocity, the level of, I'm searching for a word now, the fierceness. You know what the phrase I used a lot to describe the game itself this week was leave no doubt. If you've ever seen Remember the Titans, you'll know in there when obviously in the dramatics of that movie, they're facing a very difficult opponent and they finally get the upper hand. They say, leave no doubt. Well, Auburn left, no doubt. Don't want to just talk about the game. We can talk a little bit more about that. But I wanted to give you guys just some perspective from campus this weekend because that's what we're about here. The Auburn experience, all of it across the board. Let me just tell you, folks, if you haven't heard, it was hot, really hot. So hot that Kyle had to go sit down and realize that each year as it's gone by, I'm getting older, right? But I'm feeling it now. I'm not going to lie to you. When I had to walk up to the top of the upper deck to get some certain shots I normally get, I literally had to sit down for a minute and catch my breath. And was not just winded, but kind of like, am I going to be able to catch my breath? So just a little bit of a personal experience there. So it was definitely hot. But despite that, the weather outside of the temperature was immaculate, beautiful. We got some clouds at times, blue skies. If you are a picture taking person, this was a weekend for you to be in Auburn. Just amazing across the board. You couldn't have asked for a better weekend in Auburn outside of the temperature. Everybody was just energized. This was a very different feel than a year ago in game one, even though there was some excited feelings. People, just really wanting to see what the new era of the Hugh Freeze program was going to look like, him leading the football team. But there was also that apprehension. There was less of that, if any of that. People were on campus. I mean, from the get-go, people were marking spots earlier this year. You had to fight. You had to scrounge. There's a story I could tell with some certain group of Alabama A&M fans. Probably shouldn't get into that here, but let's just say we had a little bit of a run-in with them as well. But outside of that, they seemed like they were great visitors and enjoyed their time being on campus. And I hope they did. I hope that they were able to get the hospitality that the Auburn faithful is so accustomed to giving to people when they come to campus outside of Alabama and Georgia, and sometimes LSU, but we won't see them every year again. So, maybe that'll go less and less, the animosity there. Anyway, back to the weekend. Like I said, absolutely beautiful. You had other sports going on. Volleyball and soccer were happening. So you had no excuse to find things to do. You had no excuse to find things to eat. All of the major merchants and restaurants in town were doing specials and, come try this, food trucks galore. I mean, it just felt like we brought out all the stops this weekend. New experiences from the fan experience team for Auburn athletics. I know, just to address the elephant in the room, well, that's a very bad phrase to use on an Auburn Tiger podcast, seeing as how our rival is an elephant, for those of you that didn't get that reference. But I know one of the things that's probably a little controversial is the changing of the locker room tours on Friday afternoon no longer being free. Now, there was some heads up to this, and I think a lot of us were holding out speculation that it would still remain free to the public and that the new paid version would just get the extra things on top of that. I'm here to confirm you today after going there personally, and I know many of you as well. Locker room tours, at least for the time being, are no longer open to the public. You must purchase the special tour to go inside and see not just the locker room, but other areas that are off limits to the public, if you want to go and experience that on a Friday afternoon. I do have someone personally, a family member, that went on this experience, and I asked his honest opinions and said he felt like it was worth the money. He felt like it was worth his time, and he had several people with him as well that expressed those same sentiments. So I know that's a bit of a controversial thing, but I also want to reiterate this is an Auburn Experience team for the athletics department that's done such a great job in so many other areas. Just one opportunity, I think, where there's probably going to be mixed opinions on both sides of that. But if you're someone that's interested in that and you want to see the locker rooms, you still have that availability to do that. You just got to pay to get the tour and the extra stuff on top of that. I heard some of that extra stuff was pretty good. We didn't do that, obviously, but we went all around campus to the different events. We obviously on game day got involved in everything that we do, from the band practice early in the morning, which was great. You should also always try that if you can. Going around campus and seeing all the different tailgates, having a little bit of a small get-together tailgate with friends and family ourselves. We went to Tiger Walk. We went to Four Corners Pep Rally. I mean, everything was just firing all cylinders. Quick note on that as well, for those of you that are wondering, Tiger Walk, the changes this year with the construction to the baseball stadium, since they walked down Donahue, which is real right there, obviously, with the baseball stadium and the construction. There is a portion, as they warned you, that they said limited access, and I took that to mean it would just be less people could be allowed back there. And I was wondering how that was going to work. Where the construction begins and ends, there is only one side of Tiger Walk. So they have, when they're walking down that section, it's open. that shoulder side is, I guess it would be their right side coming down that way, is open. No fans on that side. So if you're in that section watching Tiger Walk, you got to be extra loud, pumping the noise so they feel it, until they get to the other end of that and open back up to the double-sided fan lines. We obviously are always at the banner. So if any time that you want to come and say hello, we're going to be there. By the way, just a shout out to so many people who are viewers, who are listeners, who came by and saw us, myself and several other people who were there and just hung out. Felt like we had a little party going on over there, and we've always got people that show up to say hello during that time. But this was the biggest crowd that showed up, and everybody getting to know each other, I felt like, in a long time. So that's exactly what we envisioned when we said, if you want to hang out with me or anybody else that's associated with E2C Network, the Auburn Experience, Tiger Walk in front of the banner before Tiger Walk is the best time to do it, because we're all just waiting there. Anyway, Tiger Walk, even with those changes, was great. We talked a little bit about the game at the start. We're not going to dive into the X's and O's here. I would highly encourage you to check out our, I want to call them sister podcasts, but because they're part of our network. Our other podcast, No Huddle, which is done by AJ and Jared. They're going to be a little late this week too, just because they are, as everybody else was this weekend, apparently on vacation. Apparently, Kyle is the only one who doesn't go on vacation this weekend. They will be giving you a lot of that X's and O's discussion, but much later in the week. So be looking for that. But what I can tell you about this is 73-3. Holy cow, folks. I literally turned around and asked the question, what the heck is going on? I didn't know who these people were, who this team was. I mean, every time they got the ball, at least for the second quarter, it felt like they scored a touchdown. I had to ask someone, did we punt? Like, did I miss that? Did we punt the ball ever? Of course we did, but not very often. If you remember back to our preview shows, which we do on Thursday nights for the upcoming game, as we did for Alabama A&M, we asked one of the questions in our predictions part of the show. How many punts would Auburn have in this game? Because that's actually, believe it or not, it's a very important question, kind of forming how many points your team might allow. Because if you're punting a lot, you're giving them more opportunities to score. I think Oscar Chapman, our punter, the special teams were well under that, if I'm not mistaken. If I am, it still was a great night for all around. And as we did in our post-game show, I have expressed this. There is no, I want to say legitimate, but hardcore complaint about this game. If you have a serious complaint about this game, you're going to have to really make a case to me what that is, and that you're not just being an ornery, very negative person. There really was nothing to be mad about this game. I've seen other podcasts out there put the phrase, was this the perfect opener? I would tend to agree. I'm struggling to think of anything like just hardcore that would be a complaint. Minor things such as the end of the game, some of the backups fumbling the ball that kept us from breaking the scoring record. It is annoying. It's such an Auburn thing to do when it's right there. We still didn't do it. But all in all, that was a great experience, Rolling Tumors Corner. The band, by the way, we've got a brand new video out now of the whole band performance. Big Country is the show. We also plan to put out Alabama A&M's band on our YouTube channel at the very least, that when they performed and did a great job as our guest band at the game. So please check that out, or if for the videos that are already out and the ones to come. And obviously we stayed in for an extra day, went to the soccer match, got a few more things around campus done. And yes, it was still hot, but it was a nice wrap up to an amazing first weekend in Auburn, Alabama for Auburn football. I loved every minute of it. And of course, we got many more coming up to talk about. 5 in a row, right? Do I look tired? I'm going to be even more tired by the time this 5 weeks in a row gets done. I want to move into talking a little bit about a discussion point that started to arise in my head several weeks back when I knew Cal was coming to town. So what's our topic? Our topic is, what would you recommend to a Cal being California, the Cal Golden Bears fan that is coming to Auburn for the first time? Because let's be honest, Auburn and California, the university, not the state, even though it is in the state, couldn't be further apart. Maybe a little bit, but basically about as far apart as they could be, which means for a lot of Cal fans that will travel for their team, this is going to be the one time, probably, maybe in their lifetimes, that they're going to think of even traveling to a little old town called Auburn, Alabama. You usually pass it on the way to Atlanta if you're in the South. So what we've got to do is answer the question for this game coming up, for this weekend coming up, as we just got done talking about how amazing, how much fun we had in this first football weekend. What should we recommend to the Cal fans to get the Auburn experience? For me, this is a very nuanced, complex question, and I could go 1,000 different ways with this because it really depends on a lot of factors. How long are you going to be here? What are your preferences? Are you a person that's all about the football? Are you a person that wants to get the whole experience? It could go a wide variety of ways. So what I'm going to do is actually take a reference from my friend Clint Richardson of the Auburn Uniform Database that knows a Cal fan that is coming and got his basic timeline, his or her basic timeline, when they're coming, how long they're going to be here. And they were kind of wanting to know, what should we do? What should we see? What should we smell, taste, experience, all those different things? I'm sure so many of you guys have those opinions as well. So I'm going to do my best to give the most basic, and in some ways, I hate to say it, but dumbed down Auburn experience based on these parameters. Here are the parameters. This person is going to be arriving late afternoon, let's say maybe even evening in Auburn, Alabama. Again, I can't stress this enough. If you're coming this far, Cal fans, take as much time as you can. Obviously going to be there all Saturday, going to the game, but also staying a little bit on Sunday. I'm assuming that means to lunchtime, where you probably need to be getting back to the airport or however you're getting back. I don't know if you're driving. If you're driving, I hope you left before then. Good luck. But those are the parameters that we're going to work with. Let me just go ahead and put this disclaimer out there. There are going to be things that you don't agree with here. This is my opinion. I just want to offer what I think will give them the quintessential in that time frame Auburn experience. The very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take advantage of the campus as much as possible on that Friday afternoon, late or early evening that you get there before dinner. If Toomer's Corner, Toomer's Drugstore is still open, the world famous, I say world famous, we think it's world famous, Toomer's Drugstore with the world famous Toomer's Lemonade. Do not even try to put this off. You have to go and do this, because even if you're not a lemonade person, if you're not someone that's even that excited about it, you just want to be able to say that you tried those landmarks. So for me, that's what you got to go do. Get into town. I think parking for the most part at that point in the day is going to be free in the vicinities around there. You're going to go to Toomer's Drugstore. You're going to go get a lemonade. You're going to try it. It's going to be just as sweet as it is tart, and tart as it is sweet. I love it every bit. You try the original. If you want my personal favorite, you're going to try the strawberry lemonade version with real strawberries in it. It gets a little annoying in the straw when you're drinking it, trying to slurp up the strawberry. Sounds a little gross, I know, but it's good. It's real good. But you should try the original. You're going to take your nice Toomer's Lemonade, assuming you were able to get there before it closes. I don't know what their hours are currently. And you are going to take a nice leisurely stroll around campus. Now, Auburn's campus is very well compacted, the majority of it, into a nice little section. But we can't take you around the entirety of it on a walk, because it's going to be enough walking all weekend for you anyway. But you're going to spend whatever time you can before having a late dinner with your lemonade, walking. I'm going to go across the street from Toomer's Drugs, and you're going to start at Toomer's Corner and go down Magnolia Avenue, down the hill, so you don't have to walk up that hill. It is brutal coming up the hill, even though you get a nice cold lemonade with you to help you out. You're going to go down that way and just start taking in the sights, the sounds, the looks of everything, because on one side is downtown, essentially, as it kind of moves along. And then the other side is campus. You're going to see our beautiful engineering building. You're going to get down to the business school. We're going to make a kind of a square here. It is going to cut off a little bit, but we're trying to hit the high points here. On your right is going to be Mama Goldberg's, which we're going to get back to in just a second. I told you all I had thought about this a lot. We're going to take a left down Donahue Drive, and this is going to take you past, of course, the biggest points of interest. You're going to go past Jordan-Hare Stadium. You're going to go past Auburn Arena. You're going to see Plainsman Park under construction, which you're going to get up close views of that. You're going to see the old Coliseum. You're going to go all the way up to Sanford Athletics Department on your right and make that left there back on to, I think I've got on Sanford, and continue to walk that way. See the new education building that's being built. See all of the other different university buildings, the fisheries department, all that stuff. Get around to where I went to school, mainly a lot of the sciences building. Make a left back onto College, which will lead you all the way back down, past the library, past beautiful Sanford Hall as the sun is setting, and you arrive back at Toomer's Corner. Folks, come on. We spent a lot of time just on this part alone. That's what you do. You're going to go to dinner at Mama Goldberg's, a late one. Probably is getting a little rowdy over there at that point. It is not like, it's a family-friendly place, but, they do serve the alcoholic beverage, so I'm sure some people will be partaking of that at that point on game day weekend. But you're going to go to the original. You're going to enjoy a Mama's Love and the chips and the sweet tea or whatever else you want. Experience it. It is a little shack of a building, but it's an amazing little shack of a building. It's got a lot of history, a lot of nostalgia in there. Enjoy it. Sit outside if you want to. The weather this weekend is supposed to be amazing. That's just Friday. We got to pick this thing up here. Saturday, folks. Saturday, game day. Auburn Cal. The only bad point that I have about this weekend is the fact that it's a 2:32 mid-afternoon game. And that is going to limit some of what you could do. If it was a 6:30 kickoff like it was for this past game and will be the next game, you'd have a lot more leeway. But in some ways, maybe this is good. I don't know. We'll be the judge after this weekend happens. You're going to go to Byron's Smokehouse on Opelika Road. Depending on where you're staying, it might be a little bit of a winding to get there across the railroad tracks, all that stuff. It's going to give you a good opportunity to drive around the small downtown area past that and see some of this place outside of Auburn University. You're going to have a very early breakfast there so you can get on campus, get yourself parked wherever you can find parking. You probably want to purchase the parking if it's your first time here just to eliminate the hassle of it, because people forget parking is getting even more difficult. If you got friends to tailgate with, just start that. Have fun. But I would highly encourage you, since you did just a big box around campus the day before, you probably want to spend some time in the early morning. Even though the weather is going to be nice, it's going to be a lot cooler. It still will get warm. That humidity will set in. And you're going to want to kind of walk some of that inner box that we talked about. Go to places like the beautiful, complex, enigmatic monstrosity that is Haley Center. And I do mean that tongue in cheek because I do love Haley Center. But when you go there, go to the university bookstore. You're going to probably want to say hey to the students from 1970s that are still lost in there from their 8 o'clock class they left from and weren't able to find their way out from. If you're an Auburn person, you know. So say hi to them. They're still lost in there somewhere. Go see Haley Center. Go into the new-ish. It's pretty old now, but it's still somewhat new to some people. The Melton Student Center. A lot of different things to see in there, from the gaming center to the great lounge area that you can sit in there and watch some games if you want to get out of the outside, even though the weather is going to be great. There is so much to see and do in there. Maybe go into the library and see that if you want to see who's studying on a game day. There are some. I've seen it before. And just tour some of the other ins and outs of the inner part of campus. Enjoy the tailgating. But here's where the rubber meets the road. How are you going to experience Auburn football? These are your points of interest that you have got to hit. Tiger Walk. It will start 2 hours before kickoff, which I believe is 2:30, if I'm not mistaken. Whatever it is, 2 hours before kickoff is when Tiger Walk starts. My recommendation for you, if you want to experience to its fullest, come find your spot an hour before. I know that seems a lot. You will be waiting there a long time, but you will not regret it. An hour before. Take in Tiger Walk. As soon as Tiger Walk ends, they pass by you. You're going to walk down towards the stadium. Get as close as you can to where those two roads meet, Heisman and Donahue. And you're going to wait there 45 minutes as everybody else congregates and gathers. And you're going to see the band march together and meet at that cross intersection there. And you're going to experience Four Corners Pep Rally. All the bands, beautiful sounds, everybody together. I know you're a Cal fan who's wondering about this. It may not be as awesome to you, but you'll get to experience what our traditions are, what our experience is all about. Immediately, you're going to go into the stands. You're going to go into the stadium, get yourself comfortable, get yourself something to eat. If you've eaten lunch or not in there, Kaneka dog in there, pretty good. Then, when you're in your seat, take all the surrounding sights and sound, and you're going to wait for the beautiful War Eagle flight. We'll explain this later on another show or something. We're not going to get into the whole where the Tigers, we have a War Eagle thing, one of the greatest traditions in college football. Hopefully there's a flyover from a military jet or something like that you can experience. The band taking the field, the intro videos, all the sights and sounds. And hopefully you'll still get some of the experience of the special effects they do, even though it's during the daytime. Maybe some clouds will come in and some of that will show up, but it's going to be a cool experience for that. Enjoy the game. Tigers are going to win, hopefully. But I hope you guys will still enjoy the experience of that. Let's just assume that we win, Cal fans. I'm sorry. Let's just assume. You can disagree if you want. You're going to probably hope that we win in some way if you want the full experience. So then you can go immediately from there, after listening to the band play the alma mater at the end of the game, and go back to Toomer's Corner, follow the crowd. They're all heading there. And you're going to see one of the wildest, craziest, probably confusing things you will ever see: legal rolling of someone's property of toilet paper. Everywhere, as far as the eye can see, will be looking like snow at some point. You can be confused by it. We love it. Y'all are probably a little weird too, but take that in. That is part of the Auburn experience, of course, assuming that we have won the game. I do hope for your benefit of experiencing things that will happen. Outside of that, Sunday is one of those days where I would just say you take it leisurely and go do things. There are going to be some other athletic events such as volleyball and soccer, which I would highly recommend, but we're trying to smash way too much into one weekend. There are plenty of other places you could eat, plenty of other places that you could try, and all of them are great. Plenty of things you could do. You could buy for different tours from the university, things like that, depending on your time. But folks, Auburn can't be swallowed up in one day. Auburn can't be taken in 2 days, one weekend. It is an experience, and that's why we do this podcast here. So I hope this is helpful for you, the Cal fans, maybe even for you, the Auburn fans that haven't thought about this yet. And maybe you can share this out with anybody that's interested in coming and get that Auburn experience for the very first time. What we want to do for the rest of our time tonight is I want to take a Q&A part of the show. We want to address maybe some comments, questions about this past weekend, anything going on in Auburn news right now. See, some people have been doing that as we've been watching. And we've even got some requests that we asked for from our Patreons this evening, if they would like to have some topics brought up and things like that. So that's what we're going to do with the rest of our time, as long as that takes us. For the most part, we'll wrap up probably a little bit sooner tonight. But let's take one from our Patreon people first, and then we'll get to people in the chat. So go ahead and start dropping those in now if you haven't done so. This is from Ann W., one of our Conquer Club. It's our Patreon. You can go there through patreon.com/Conquer Club if you want to sign up, get other perks, such as our Discord and other different levels that give you things if you want to go check that out. And our one link on YouTube gets you there. Anne says, she's got two questions actually. What did we learn about the offensive line in the first game? It's a great question, Anne. The problem is we didn't learn anything legitimate. We cannot say that we learned anything legitimate about pretty much anybody in this game, because the opponent clearly was not up to snuff. No offense, Alabama A&M fans. I think y'all probably gone away from our channel, our content at this point, but it's the reality of the situation. It's FBS versus FCS. What you can see is who was playing, who was getting rotated in, especially during that first quarter, second quarter, before the backups really started working in. But I'm not trying to avoid the question. I just don't know that you can take anything definitively away from specifically what you were asking about offensive line play this weekend. Now, Cal, as we just were addressing with what they should be checking out, Cal, I would say this: they are going to be a Power 5 opponent. They may be able to show us a little bit more, definitely of a challenge, but what that offensive line is going to look like. Are they protecting Peyton Thorne as much as it looked like they were at times? Are they going to create more room for the running backs? Only time will tell. I don't know that there's anything we can take away from that. Second part of her question, are there any key areas where injuries would expose a depth problem? Personally, at this time, I do not know of any. I listened to the press conference after the game, and it didn't seem, unless I mislike it, that Coach Hugh Freeze said any new injuries or things like that. So I think your best bet on getting information for that is going to be his weekly pre-press conference, which is Mondays. It was supposed to be before lunchtime, then it was after lunchtime. They'll let you know on social media. So that would be a great time to get an update on that. He's usually pretty open about sharing those things. But to somewhat answer the question as best I can, we've always been a little bit concerned, coaches have, about the depth at defensive line. Linebackers, there's some guys that have had some very nagging injuries even throughout spring and fall. That could be a problem. Over time, this is going to be a question that we really need to pay attention to and ask. But right now, it sounds like we're doing all right. Alex McPherson, who's been dealing with that other issue, not an injury, but just a health issue, seems to be getting a lot better and is getting closer and closer to being back as the starting kicker. Although shout out to Towns Magoo, who did very well in his stead in this past game. So that's how I'd answer those couple of questions from you. Let's look at some comments and questions from people that popped in. And we said this on our last stream, but I do want to give a shout out to John Moss for becoming a new YouTube channel member. He gave me a notification here since we made this stream so early last time. A lot of other people were checking in and saying hello. And I see that you were here as well. We got your question in. Let's see here. Corey said, Kyle, what can we expect if we put up an Alabama A&M score on Cal? What do you mean? He says, what can we expect if we put up an Alabama A&M score on Cal? If we put up 70 points on Cal, well, no one's going to take any of my advice ever again if they're a Cal fan, because they're going to be so mad at us. If we do that, people are going to lose their minds in a good way. They're going to be convinced this is a national championship team, all that stuff. And look, the season's still young. It very well may end up being that way. We've seen, if my phrase is always this, if Chris Davis can run 109 yards for a touchdown in that moment, in that game, anything is possible. Anything is possible. But we will lose our minds, and in a good way. Corey, you knew that the answer is going to be to that. And I think you'll be right there with them, losing their minds. Let's see here. What else do we got in the chat that we may want to talk about a little bit? Kevlar brings up a point, says, I thought our band was superior to A&M also. Well, let's just be upfront about that. There's two different vibes, two different styles. Historically, black colleges have a very different way and style of doing the marching band thing than maybe you're like just overall state university. But they're both unique, and they're both very special in their own ways. It was a very juxtaposed, I guess is the word I would use, or contrast, where you've got, I think their theme this year, it wasn't jazz, but it was, I don't want to say it was hip hop. I think it was a little bit deeper than that. But ours was big country this year. And this is funny. I was told by a country fan not a country fan, I'm sorry, a band member maybe about a few weeks ago, what this was going to be. And they said that it's been a long time coming. A lot of people have wanted them to try a country set, and it finally came about. Some different takes in there. If you haven't seen the video, go check that out. I wouldn't say either one's superior because they're so different in the way they do things. But I would say one's superior because I'm wearing an Auburn hat after all. But here's what I will say is that halftime was pretty entertaining, because there was a lot of good stuff going on for that first game, especially. So they delivered, and I'm very grateful to Alabama A&M for putting up a great show for us alongside ours as well. All right, keep moving right along here. WT pointing out our kicker, Mr. Towns Magoo, looking like a junior or senior, not a freshman. He is quite the talent, and makes you feel very good about the rest of our depth chart. Kicker. Auburn is not Alabama. They do not suffer for anything on special teams. People will laugh at that, but you'll be grateful when you don't have one. Let's keep moving along here, see what we got going on here. If there's anything else we want to talk about. Did I just call Beard Eves Coliseum the old Coliseum? That borders on disrespectful if that's what you did. It is the old Coliseum. It will probably at some point be the no longer Coliseum. You need to prepare yourself for that day. I did neglect to say during my recommendations to Cal fan to go into some of these places if you can, for that, like off of that path. It's an old building, a lot of history in there. There's not much like left in there from what I've seen that's of historical value or anything like that, but just a walk where giants walked. Charles Barkley, Chuck, Wesley Person, John Mengelt, so many others. It's a cool thing. If you're a person that enjoys that type of stuff, go walk in those places if they're open. Don't go places they're not open. It's not a recommendation. But no disrespect to the old Coliseum, because I spent many, many afternoons and evenings in there for game times whenever they were, or just as a student. Believe it or not, I had some classes in there. But it is old, and it's not long for this world, believe it or not. Well, there's no official confirmation of that. I don't want to act like I know something that you all don't. But hey, it is what it is. Let's see. This is from Corey. Will the Oklahoma game be one to where we get a big crowd of recruits? Well, apparently there was a big crowd of recruits, really big ones, here this week. Look, I think it's obvious that you want your biggest recruiting groups, or your most prominent ones especially, to come to those games that have special meaning. I think the first game is a special meaning outside of the opponent. In fact, it may be even the best thing, because they're going to see everybody primed and ready to go for the first game. So excited, so energized, especially for a night game. Oklahoma game is going to have so much other energy around it. It can almost be, if you lose the game, it can have a negative effect. We'll see. But there were plenty of recruits there this weekend. All right. I think that's all of the comments and questions we'll take for the Q&A part of the show. Again, I know this was a little bit different of a show this evening. I appreciate you guys being very flexible and always being understanding when we have to change things around. This will not be episode 92, just be an extra bonus episode of the Auburn Experience podcast, the flagship show of the E2C Network. I'm saying that for WT's sake. And we'll be back in the saddle next week with Austin. If you want to keep up with me, do so at Kyle Loomis 24 on X. You can also, and you should, follow anything and everything E2C Network related, because content galore is coming out from this past weekend. Content galore the next couple of weekends. Go check it out. Go follow. Go subscribe. You guys are the best little family within the Auburn family. And I appreciate you so much for being here and hanging out with us. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.